Marcus Thompson shifts uncomfortably in his mechanic's coveralls as he steps into the first-class cabin of Flight AL-447. The fluorescent lighting catches the oil stains on his uniform, testament to the double shift he just completed at the airport maintenance hangar. His calloused hands grip a worn leather bag containing his most precious possession, a hand-carved wooden jewelry box he crafted himself as a graduation gift for his daughter. The smell of jet fuel still clings to his clothes, mixing with the sanitized air of the premium cabin. Sarah Miller, the lead flight attendant with perfectly styled blonde hair and a practiced smile, freezes mid-greeting when she sees him. Her blue eyes narrow imperceptibly, scanning his appearance from head to toe. The grease under his fingernails, the work boots worn at the heels, his dark skin glistening with the sweat of honest labor. "Sir, I think you're in the wrong section," she says, her voice dripping with false sweetness that barely masks her disdain. "This is first class. The economy is through that curtain." The words hang in the air like a challenge, causing nearby passengers to glance up from their champagne flutes and Financial Times newspapers. A businessman in a $1,000 suit lowers his reading glasses, studying Marcus with undisguised curiosity. Marcus feels the familiar weight of judgment pressing down on his shoulders, a burden he's carried since his first day in aviation 20 years ago. But he remains calm, reaching into his breast pocket to pull out his boarding pass with deliberate slowness. "Seat 2A, he says quietly, his voice carrying the exhaustion of a 16-hour shift, but also the quiet dignity of a man who has earned his place. Sarah examines the boarding pass as if searching for evidence of forgery, her perfectly manicured red nails tapping against the paper with growing agitation. She holds it up to the light, checks it twice, 3 times. "This must be some mistake," she mutters, but Marcus is already moving past her toward his seat. As he settles into the leather chair that cost him 6 months of overtime pay, Sarah whispers urgently to another crew member, her eyes never leaving Marcus. The atmosphere in the cabin shifts palpably, tension crackling like static electricity before a storm. Other passengers pretend not to notice, but Marcus catches their furtive glances, sees the way they clutch their designer bags a little tighter. You won't believe what happens when the airline's CEO steps aboard this flight. The boarding process continues as Marcus closes his eyes briefly, trying to shut out the hostile energy surrounding him. His mind drifts to his daughter, Keisha, graduating summa cum laude from Howard University with a degree in aerospace engineering. She'll be the first in their family to break through the ceiling he's spent decades maintaining from below. The thought brings a small smile to his weathered face. Moments later, a black woman in her mid-40s boards the plane, moving with the measured grace of someone accustomed to navigating hostile spaces. Amara Johnson wears a simple navy blazer from a department store sale rack, paired with slacks that have seen better days and comfortable flats worn down at the heels. Her natural hair is pulled back in a practical bun, and she carries a modest canvas tote bag instead of designer luggage. No one would guess that this unassuming woman controls a $4 billion airline empire. She chose this particular flight for her quarterly incognito service evaluation, a practice she instituted after hearing too many stories of discrimination from passengers who look like her. Amara notes every detail as she moves through the cabin, the elegant cream and gold interior, the nervous energy rippling through the crew, the way Sarah's smile never quite reaches her eyes. She takes her seat in 3B, directly behind Marcus, close enough to observe everything that unfolds. Sarah's reaction to Amara is immediate and predictable. The flight attendant's gaze slides over her with the same dismissive assessment she gave Marcus, categorizing her as another anomaly in the privileged space of first class. When the pre-flight beverage service begins, Sarah moves through the cabin with practiced efficiency, offering champagne and orange juice to passengers with designer clothes and platinum watches. She laughs at their jokes, remembers their names from the manifest, ensures their every comfort. But when she reaches Amara's row, her demeanor shifts. She almost passes by entirely before Amara presses the call button. The chime sounds twice before Sarah reluctantly returns. "Did you need something?" The question lacks any warmth, delivered in a tone that suggests Amara is already an inconvenience. There's no offer of beverages, no welcoming smile, just barely concealed irritation. Amara requests a simple glass of water with a polite smile that doesn't waver despite the slight. Sarah nods curtly and disappears. 5 minutes pass. 10. 15. 20. Other passengers receive their second round of drinks while Amara waits. She watches Sarah deliberately serve 3 other passengers who called after her, all of them white, all of them dressed in clothes that scream wealth. When Sarah finally returns with a small plastic cup of lukewarm water instead of the crystal glasses others received, Amara accepts it graciously while making detailed notes on her phone. The lead flight attendant emerges from the galley with an air of manufactured authority. David Chen, a man in his early 30s, with ambitions that exceed his empathy, has perfected the art of selective customer service. His silk tie is perfectly knotted, his smile calibrated to convey superiority disguised as professionalism. Sarah immediately pulls him aside, her whispers urgent and insistent. She gestures subtly toward Marcus and Amara, her body language radiating alarm, as if she's identified threats to national security rather than paying customers. David's expression hardens as he listens, his jaw setting with self-righteous determination. He straightens his tie, squares his shoulders, and approaches Marcus with the bearing of a prosecutor approaching a guilty defendant. "Sir, I need to verify your ticket again," he announces, loud enough for surrounding passengers to hear. "This is a routine security check we perform on all passengers." The lie slides easily from his lips. Marcus, who has already shown his boarding pass twice and knows this is anything but routine, feels his jaw tighten. But he's been here before, in conference rooms where he was the only black face, in aviation schools where instructors questioned his every calculation, in hangar break rooms where colleagues wondered aloud how he got hired. He reaches for his documents with practiced patience. David scrutinizes every detail of Marcus's boarding pass and identification with theatrical thoroughness. He holds them up to the light, runs his finger along the edges, even produces a small flashlight to examine supposed security features. Sarah hovers nearby, adding her own commentary. "The booking code seems unusual," she offers, though she has no idea what a usual booking code looks like. They demand to see his credit card, his employee identification, his driver's license. Each document is met with skepticism, each answer spawning more invasive questions. "You're a mechanic?" David's tone suggests he's uncovered a lie. "At which facility?" Marcus names the hangar, his patience wearing thin but his voice remaining steady. "And they pay you enough for first-class tickets?" Sarah interjects, her voice dripping with disbelief. "These seats cost $3,000. Marcus takes a slow breath, his hands folding calmly in his lap. "I'm a certified aviation mechanic with 20 years of experience. I saved for 6 months to afford this ticket. My daughter is graduating from Howard University tomorrow." The explanation should suffice, but David and Sarah exchange knowing looks. "Saved for 6 months," David repeats slowly, as if the concept of a black man saving money is beyond comprehension. "And you chose to spend it on a first-class ticket?" The interrogation continues for several more minutes, each question more insulting than the last. They ask about his address, his salary, whether he has any criminal history. Other passengers shift uncomfortably in their seats, some beginning to recognize the discrimination unfolding before them. When David finally moves to perform his supposed security checks on other passengers, his approach transforms completely. He breezes past the white businessman in 1A with barely a glance at his boarding pass. The elderly white woman in 2B receives a warm smile and a compliment on her pearl necklace. A young white man in designer streetwear gets a friendly nod and no questions about how he affords his seat. The selective scrutiny is so blatant that even passengers who initially supported the crew begin to look uncomfortable. Amara watches this performance with the trained eye of someone who has spent decades fighting such systems from within. Her fingers fly across her phone screen, documenting times, recording conversations, building a case, with the methodical precision that made her a successful CEO. When the discrimination becomes too blatant to ignore, she speaks up, her voice calm but carrying an undertone of steel. "Excuse me," she addresses David as he passes her seat for the third time without acknowledging her. "Is this verification process standard procedure for all passengers? I noticed you haven't checked the gentleman in 1A or the lady in 2B. David turns to her with barely concealed irritation, his customer service mask slipping. "Ma'am, we're simply ensuring everyone's safety and comfort. Our procedures are based on years of training and expertise. Perhaps you should focus on enjoying your flight instead of questioning our methods." The dismissal is sharp, intended to put Amara in her place. Sarah adds her voice to the condescension, stepping closer with an expression of false concern. "Some people don't understand the complexities of airline security," she says, speaking slowly as if Amara might have trouble comprehending. "It's best to leave these matters to trained professionals. We know what we're looking for. The implication is clear, and you are what we're looking for." Amara takes a slow breath, her fingers never stopping their documentation. She makes a quiet phone call, speaking in low, measured tones that neither David nor Sarah can quite catch. Her voice carries the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed, but the crew members are too blinded by their assumptions to notice. Marcus remains silent throughout this exchange, his dignity intact despite the humiliation. He's thinking of his daughter, of the example he wants to set. He's faced discrimination before, the assumption that he doesn't belong in engineering meetings, that his presence in privileged spaces must be explained, justified, or investigated. But today feels different. Today someone else is watching, documenting, refusing to let it slide. Between the two black passengers, an unspoken solidarity forms. They don't know each other, but they recognize the shared experience, the familiar weight of being seen as intruders in spaces they've rightfully earned access to. The plane reaches cruising altitude when Sarah returns with David, their faces set with grim determination. They've had time to coordinate their approach, to convince themselves that their actions are justified. Sarah positions herself in the aisle, blocking Marcus's potential exit, while David stands with the authority of someone about to deliver justice. "Sir," Sarah addresses Marcus loud enough for the entire first-class cabin to hear, ensuring maximum humiliation, "we've received multiple complaints from other passengers about your presence. They're uncomfortable with you being here. For the comfort and safety of everyone on board, we're going to need you to move to a seat in the back of the plane." The accusation lands like a physical blow. The cabin falls silent except for the hum of engines. Several passengers look around in confusion. No one has complained. Marcus's hands grip the leather armrests, his knuckles tightening. What complaints? His voice remains controlled, but there's an edge now. "I haven't spoken to anyone. I've been sitting here quietly since boarding. Who complained?" David steps forward, his voice taking on an authoritative edge that brooks no argument. "Sir, we don't need to explain our decisions to you. This is about ensuring all passengers have a comfortable flight experience. Someone like you should understand the importance of accommodation." He pauses before the last word, loading it with meaning. The implication hangs heavy in the recycled air. Someone like you, meaning someone black, someone in work clothes, someone who doesn't fit their narrow image of who deserves first class. The elderly white woman across the aisle, Margaret Henderson, a retired federal judge with a keen sense of justice, speaks up. "Excuse me," she says firmly. "I haven't complained about anything. This young man has been perfectly quiet and respectful. What's really going on here?" Sarah dismisses her with barely a glance. "Ma'am, this doesn't concern you. We're handling a sensitive situation." But Margaret won't be silenced. "It certainly does concern me when I witnessed discrimination on my flight." Her words embolden others. A young Asian woman in 4B starts recording on her phone. A Latino businessman in 5A shakes his head in disgust. But Sarah and David are too committed to their course to back down now. "Sir," David continues, addressing Marcus, "if you refuse to move voluntarily, We'll have to consider this a security issue that could have serious consequences for you. The threat is clear. Comply or face arrest, possible charges, your name on a no-fly list. All for the crime of existing while black in a space they've deemed off-limits. David escalates the situation further, his voice carrying the false authority of someone drunk on minimal power. Actually, he announces as if just remembering a crucial detail, we have reason to believe this ticket may have been obtained through irregular means. He lets the accusation hang, watching for its effect. How exactly does a mechanic afford a $3,000 first-class ticket? Did you really save for this? Or is there something else we should know? The implication of theft or fraud isn't subtle. He's suggesting Marcus is a criminal, that his presence here is not just inappropriate but illegal. Other passengers shift uncomfortably in their seats. Some pull out phones to record, sensing they're witnessing something that will matter beyond this moment. The young tech entrepreneur in 4C, Jessica Liu, starts live streaming on Instagram. "Oh my God, you guys," she whispers to her phone. "I'm watching the most blatant racial profiling I've ever seen. They're literally trying to kick a black man out of first class for no reason." Within minutes, her stream has hundreds of viewers. Comments flood in, expressing outrage. Someone creates the hashtag AL447racism. The digital wildfire begins to spread. Amara rises from her seat with the fluid grace of someone stepping into their power. Despite her modest appearance, her presence commands attention. "I'm an attorney," she states clearly, letting the half-truth serve its purpose. She is indeed a licensed attorney, though she hasn't practiced in years. "What you're doing violates multiple federal anti-discrimination laws. The Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Air Carrier Access Act, and numerous federal aviation regulations. I strongly advise you to reconsider this course of action." Her knowledge is specific, detailed, real. But Sarah laughs, a sharp mocking sound that cuts through the tension. "An attorney?" She looks Amara up and down with open disdain, taking in the department store clothes, the worn shoes, the modest appearance. "Dress like that? Please. What firm do you work for? The public defender's office?" The classism drips from every word. David joins in the mockery. "Ma'am, impersonating an attorney is a serious matter. Just like interfering with crew member instructions. That's a federal offense that could land you in prison. You could find yourself on the no-fly list alongside your friend here." He gestures dismissively at Marcus. "I suggest you sit down and stay quiet, or you'll be joining him in the back of the plane." The threats are meant to intimidate, to silence, to restore the order they believe has been disrupted by these black passengers who dare to exist in first class. But Amara remains composed, her eyes flashing with controlled anger. She continues recording, her phone capturing every word, every gesture, every moment of discrimination. She texts rapidly to someone, her fingers flying across the screen with purpose. Sarah and David don't notice the subtle shift in her demeanor, the quiet confidence of someone who holds cards they haven't yet played. They're too intoxicated by their own power, too certain of their righteousness. Around them, the cabin divides. Some passengers nod along with the crew, muttering about safety and proper procedures. Others look horrified, recognizing discrimination when they see it. The businessman who initially supported the crew starts to look uncomfortable, perhaps remembering diversity training or recognizing potential liability. Jessica Liu's live stream now has thousands of viewers. Comments pour in from around the world. Screenshots spread across Twitter, Facebook, Reddit. News outlets begin to take notice. Someone tags Airline Airline's official account. The airline's social media team, unaware of the unfolding disaster, continues posting promotional content about their commitment to all passengers. Sarah calls for additional support through the intercom, her voice carrying false urgency that transforms the situation into theater. "We need security assistance in first class," she announces. "We have 2 uncooperative passengers refusing crew member instructions." The word uncooperative hangs in the air like an indictment. Marcus's voice rises for the first time, disbelief and frustration finally breaking through his practiced calm. Uncooperative? He stands slowly, his 6-foot frame unfolding with dignity. I've shown you my documents 3 times. I've answered every invasive question about my income, my job, my life. I've sat here quietly while you've treated me like a criminal. What more do you want from me? What would make me acceptable to you? His words carry the weight of every similar experience, every moment of having to prove his right to exist in spaces others take for granted. Several passengers begin recording with their phones, and within minutes, multiple videos appear on social media platforms. Jessica Liu's followers have alerted major news outlets. A CNN producer notices the trending hashtag. Fox News assigns a social media team to monitor the situation. The story begins to break free from the confines of the aircraft. The young tech entrepreneur continues her commentary. This is insane. They're literally harassing these passengers for being black. The mechanic saved for 6 months to visit his daughter's graduation, and they're treating him like he stole the ticket. Her outrage resonates with viewers. The hashtag AL447. Racism climbs, trending charts. People share their own stories of discrimination in premium travel spaces. The digital chorus grows louder. Captain Williams emerges from the cockpit, his silver hair and weathered face giving him an air of authority that commands immediate attention. He's a veteran pilot with 30 years of experience, but that experience hasn't included much interaction with passengers who look like Marcus or Amara. David immediately intercepts him, speaking rapidly and gesturing toward the 2 black passengers. His version of events bears little resemblance to reality. Captain, we have a serious situation. 2 passengers with questionable documentation are refusing to comply with crew instructions. They're creating a disturbance, and other passengers feel threatened. Williams's expression grows stern as he listens, his training and security protocols overriding any impulse to investigate further. In his world, crew reports are gospel. Are you telling me we have potential security threats? Williams asks, his voice carrying enough volume for everyone to hear. 2 passengers with questionable tickets causing disturbances. Have they made any threats? David nods eagerly, embellishing further. They've been argumentative, refusing to answer questions, and now they're claiming to be professionals. One says he's a mechanic, the other an attorney, but their appearance doesn't match their claims, and their documentation seems suspicious. The lies flow easily, each one building on the last to create a narrative that justifies their discrimination. Williams accepts it without question, his own biases filling in the gap. The captain addresses the cabin with the authority of his position. Ladies and gentlemen, I need everyone to remain calm. We're dealing with a security situation that requires our full attention. His words transform Marcus and Amara from passengers to threats in the minds of those predisposed to see them that way. The tension in the cabin ratchets up another notch. The division among passengers becomes more pronounced. The middle-aged businessman in the expensive suit, Richard Pemberton, speaks up with the voice of privileged authority. Captain, if your crew has concerns, we should trust their judgment. Captain, if your crew has concerns, we should trust their judgment. Safety comes first. I fly first class twice a week, and I've never seen the crew act without good reason. His endorsement emboldens Sarah and David, who exchange satisfied glances, but others push back against the narrative. The young woman in designer clothes, Sofia Rodriguez, stands up, her voice clear and strong. I've been watching this entire time. These people did absolutely nothing wrong. They're being harassed because they're black. This is racial profiling, plain and simple. Her words spark a heated exchange. Pemberton dismisses her concerns. Young lady, you don't understand the complexities of air travel security. The crew members are trained professionals. Sophia won't back down. I understand discrimination when I see it. They haven't asked anyone else for documentation. They haven't questioned how anyone else affords their tickets. Margaret Henderson, the retired judge, adds her voice. I've presided over civil rights cases for 20 years. What I'm witnessing here is textbook discrimination. These crew members are violating federal law. The cabin divides into factions, those comfortable with the status quo defending the crew, and those recognizing injustice speaking out against it. The argument grows heated, voices rising, positions hardening. Through it all, Marcus maintains his composure, though the strain shows in the tightness around his eyes, the set of his jaw. He thinks of his daughter, Keisha, graduating summa cum laude, waiting for him at Howard University. She'll give the valedictorian speech tomorrow, and he promised he'd be there. He saved every penny for 6 months, worked double shifts, missed family dinners, all for this moment. And now he's being treated like a criminal for daring to exist in a space others believe he doesn't deserve. The viral spread of the videos accelerates exponentially. Major news outlets begin preparing breaking news segments. Airlink's stock price starts to dip as investors react to the potential scandal. The airline's PR department finally notices the crisis. Phones begin ringing in the executive offices, but the CEO is mysteriously unreachable. They don't know she's sitting in seat 3B, watching her company's values crumble in real time. Captain Williams announces a potential solution that sends ripples of alarm through the cabin. Ladies and gentlemen, given the security concerns raised by our experienced crew, we may need to make an emergency landing at the nearest airport. We cannot compromise on safety. The announcement transforms concern into panic. Passengers who have connections begin protesting. Business deals hang in the balance. Family reunions are threatened. The 2 black passengers at the center of this manufactured crisis are being painted as threats significant enough to disrupt everyone's travel. Amara makes another call. This time, her voice carries a different tone, no longer the patient customer but the commanding executive. "This is Code Red authorization," she says clearly. "I need legal and the board of directors on standby immediately. This is regarding Flight AL-447. Full crisis protocol. Prepare for emergency media response. Get me the head of HR and the Diversity Council. Now." Sarah lunges for the phone with unprofessional aggression. "You can't make calls during a security situation. Give me that phone immediately." Amara pulls back, her composure finally cracking to reveal the steel underneath. Her voice drops to a level that commands attention. "I'm calling the CEO of Airlink Airlines. I suggest you step back." David laughs derisively, the sound harsh and mocking. "The CEO? You're delusional. What's next, you know, the president? The Pope? Who else are you pretending to know?" But even as he mocks, something shifts in the atmosphere. The co-pilot, James Mitchell, emerges from the cockpit, his face pale and drawn. He holds his phone like it contains explosive information, whispering urgently to Captain Williams. The captain's confident demeanor suddenly wavers. Color drains from his face as he listens to whatever Mitchell is saying. Williams turns slowly to look at Amara, and for the first time since emerging from the cockpit, uncertainty flickers in his eyes. His voice, when it comes, is smaller, hesitant. Who exactly are you?" The question hangs in the air as social media explodes with the story. AL-447 racism reaches the top trending position globally. Major news outlets interrupt regular programming. CNN's breaking news banner reads, "Racial discrimination incident on Airlink flight." In Airlink's headquarters, the crisis team assembles without their leader, trying to manage a disaster they don't fully understand. Amara stands slowly, deliberately, her modest appearance suddenly transformed by the sheer force of her presence. The simple navy blazer and worn shoes fade into irrelevance as she commands the attention of every person in the first-class cabin. When she speaks, her voice carries to every corner, each word precisely chosen for maximum impact. "I am Amara Johnson, Chief Executive Officer of Airlink Airlines. For the past hour, I have witnessed and documented the most appalling display of systematic racism in my company's history. Every moment has been recorded, every word captured, every violation of federal law and company policy documented. The silence that follows is absolute, broken only by the steady hum of engines. Sarah's face drains of all color, her perfectly applied makeup unable to hide the shock. The tray she's holding clatters to the floor, sending glasses rolling down the aisle. David takes an involuntary step backward, his mouth opening and closing without sound, like a fish gasping for air. His earlier arrogance evaporates instantly, replaced by terror. Amara's phone explodes with incoming calls. Board members demanding updates, legal counsel offering advice, PR directors strategizing damage control. She selects one call and puts it on speaker, filling the cabin with the panicked voice of Aerolink's chief legal officer. CEO Johnson, we're assembling the full crisis team. Legal has reviewed the social media footage. This is a Category 5 reputational disaster. The ACLU has already reached out. The Department of Transportation is asking questions. How do you want to proceed? Amara's response is measured but firm, each word carrying the weight of absolute authority. Full accountability protocol, immediate termination proceedings for all involved crew members, comprehensive review of our training program starting tomorrow. I want every employee in this company to understand that discrimination has no place at Airline, and I want a personal apology drafted for Mr. Thompson, along with appropriate compensation for this horrific experience. She turns to Marcus, her expression softening from corporate steel to human empathy. Mr. Thompson, on behalf of Aerolink Airlines, I offer my deepest, most sincere apologies. What you've endured today is inexcusable, unacceptable, and goes against everything this company should represent. You saved for 6 months to see your daughter graduate, and my employees tried to steal that moment from you because of the color of your skin. There are no words adequate to express my shame and regret. The cabin remains frozen in stunned silence. Passengers who recorded videos continue filming, capturing this unprecedented moment of corporate accountability. Captain Williams stammers, his earlier authority evaporating like morning mist. CEO Johnson, I had no idea. They told me. David said. His words trail off as he realizes the magnitude of his failure. Amara cuts him off with surgical precision. You had no idea because you didn't ask. You didn't investigate. You didn't look beyond your own assumptions. You assumed, just like they did, that black passengers in first class must be problems to be solved, rather than customers to be served. Your 30 years of experience should have taught you better. Instead, it only entrenched your biases. The rebuke lands with devastating effect. William seems to age 10 years in 10 seconds. Around the cabin, reactions vary wildly. Passengers who sided with the crew shift uncomfortably in their seats, avoiding eye contact, suddenly fascinated by the safety cards in their seat pockets. Richard Pemberton, the businessman who spoke about trusting the crew's judgment, sinks lower in his seat, his face flushed with embarrassment. Those who recorded videos continue capturing every moment, knowing they're witnessing history. Sofia Rodriguez nods with satisfaction, vindicated in her stand against injustice. Margaret Henderson, the retired judge, watches with professional interest as justice unfolds in real time. Sarah finally finds her voice, though it emerges as barely a whisper, cracking with desperation. We were just following protocol. We thought. The excuses sound hollow even to her own ears. Amara's laugh is sharp and humorless, cutting through the weak justification. Protocol? Show me the protocol that says to interrogate black passengers. Show me the rule that requires demanding extra documentation based on appearance. Show me where it's written that a mechanic's money is worth less than a banker's. Show me the training that taught you to humiliate hardworking people because they don't fit your narrow vision of who belongs in first class. David attempts damage control, his voice shaking. This is all a misunderstanding. We treat all passengers equally. We never meant to imply. His words die as Amara produces her phone and plays back a recording, their entire interaction captured in perfect clarity. David's voice fills the cabin. Someone like you should understand the importance of accommodation. Sarah's mocking laugh echoes. An attorney dressed like that? Their discrimination, preserved in digital amber, allows no room for denial or revision. The evidence is damning, irrefutable, and now part of the permanent record. The reporters for the press are all. The plane continues to its destination, but the atmosphere has transformed completely. What began as a routine flight has become a watershed moment in corporate accountability. Amara returns to her seat only long enough to gather her things before moving to the galley to coordinate the response. Her phone never stops ringing. Legal advisors, board members, journalists who've somehow gotten her direct number. She handles each call with the skill of someone who built a $4 billion company from the ground up. Within the hour, Aerolink's legal team confirms the immediate consequences. Sarah Miller and David Chin will face termination the moment the plane touches down. Captain Williams faces indefinite suspension pending a full investigation of his failure to properly assess the situation. The company's stock price continues to slide as the story dominates social media and news cycles. At the gate, security personnel wait, but not for Marcus or Amara. They're there to escort Sarah and David directly to Human Resources, where termination papers have already been prepared. The two former employees are walked through the airport in full view of their colleagues, their careers in aviation ending in the most public way possible. Sarah's breakdown is complete, tears streaming down her face as the reality of her actions' consequences hits home. "I have a family," she sobs. "I have bills. My daughter's in college. Please, I'll do anything. I'll apologize. I'll take training. Please, don't do this." Her pleas echo hollowly in the sterile HR office, falling on ears that have heard too many excuses for discrimination. Amara, present via video link, responds without sympathy but with calm finality. "Mr. Thompson has a family too. He has a daughter who's graduating with honors, a daughter he saved for months to see. You tried to steal that moment from him because you couldn't see past your prejudice. Your daughter will have to learn that actions have consequences, just like Mr. Thompson's daughter learned that dignity matters more than comfort." David's reaction is different, anger replacing Sarah's tears. "This is unfair. We were just doing our jobs. You can't destroy our lives over a misunderstanding." But the evidence is overwhelming. The violations clear, the consequences inevitable. Their aviation industry certifications will be permanently revoked, ending any chance of working for another airline. Their names will become cautionary tales in diversity training programs across the industry. Within 48 hours, the full scope of consequences unfolds with stunning swiftness. Sarah and David don't just face termination, but potential criminal charges for violating federal civil rights laws. The Department of Justice opens an investigation based on the video evidence and passenger testimonies. Their actions, preserved forever on social media, become evidence in what promises to be a landmark case. Marcus Thompson receives more than just an apology. Aerolink provides him with lifetime first-class flight privileges for himself and his immediate family. The monetary settlement of $500,000, 0 cents, is accompanied by something more valuable: a full scholarship for his daughter Keisha's graduate studies in aerospace engineering. The company commits to hiring her upon graduation, if she chooses, ensuring that the next generation has the opportunities the current one was denied. More importantly, Marcus's daughter's graduation ceremony includes an unexpected guest. CEO Johnson herself attends, presenting not just the scholarship, but a public acknowledgement of her father's dignity in the face of discrimination. The ripple effects extend far beyond individual consequences. Aerolink announces a comprehensive overhaul of its training programs, developed in partnership with leading civil rights organizations. The mandatory anti-bias training isn't a simple video course, but an intensive program involving role-playing, psychological evaluation, and ongoing assessment. Every employee, from baggage handlers to board members, must complete it. The company establishes a passenger advocacy board with real power to investigate complaints and mandate changes. This board, notably, includes Marcus Thompson as a founding member. Captain Williams, after his suspension, chooses early retirement rather than face the retraining and demotion that await him. His 3 decades of experience can't overcome the stain of his failure to protect passengers from discrimination. In his retirement statement, he acknowledges his role in perpetuating systemic bias, a small step toward accountability. The legal proceedings initiated by Marcus, supported by the ACLU and other civil rights organizations, promise to set new precedents for accountability in aviation discrimination. Sarah and David's attempts to sue the airline for wrongful termination fail spectacularly, with judges citing clear evidence of discriminatory conduct and noting that their actions exposed the company to significant legal liability. 1 week later, Amara appears on major news networks alongside Marcus for an exclusive interview that draws millions of viewers. The CNN studio fills with an electricity of anticipation as Anderson Cooper prepares to discuss what has become known as the Flight AL-477 incident. Amara, now dressed in the designer suit that matches her position, sits beside Marcus, who wears a sharp suit gifted by the airline, not as charity, but as recognition of the dignity he always possessed. "I didn't go undercover to trap employees," Amara explains, her voice steady but emotional. "I instituted these quarterly reviews to understand our customers' experiences. What I discovered was my own pain, the pain every person of color knows when judged not for who we are, but for what others assume we must be. I've been CEO for 5 years, but sitting in that seat, being dismissed and diminished, reminded me why this work matters." Marcus speaks next, his words carrying the weight of lived experience. "I've taught my daughter that dignity isn't about how others treat you, it's about how you carry yourself. But I've also taught her that silence in the face of injustice isn't dignity, it's complicity. Speaking up, standing firm, demanding better, that's what changes systems. That's what makes it possible for her to soar higher than I ever could." The interview reveals additional details that shock viewers. Amara shares statistics showing that complaints of discrimination on Aerolink flights had increased 40% over the past 2 years, but were routinely dismissed as misunderstandings or oversensitivity. The Flight AL-447 incident wasn't an anomaly. It was the visible tip of a massive iceberg. Marcus reveals that this wasn't his first experience with discrimination on flights, just the first time someone with power witnessed it. He tells of countless similar incidents over his 20-year career, each one chipping away at his faith in the promise of equality. The conversation shifts to solutions. Amara announces new initiatives, blind hiring practices to reduce bias in recruitment, diversity quotas for leadership positions with real accountability measures, and a customer advocacy board with the power to mandate changes. "Aerolink isn't just transporting passengers," she declares. "We're carrying people's dreams, their reunions, their celebrations. Every ticket purchased is a trust placed in us. We will not betray that trust again." The interview concludes with both of them standing together, a powerful image of accountability and alliance. The moment becomes iconic, a CEO standing with the customer her company failed, acknowledging the failure and committing to change. The story's impact extends far beyond Aerolink. Congressional hearings on aviation discrimination are scheduled, with both Amara and Marcus invited to testify. New legislation is proposed to strengthen penalties for discriminatory practices in transportation, with specific provisions for employee accountability. Senator Elizabeth Warren references the Flight AL-447 incident in introducing the Air Travel Civil Rights Act, designed to give passengers more recourse when facing discrimination. Other airlines scramble to review their policies, terrified of becoming the next viral scandal. Delta announces enhanced diversity training. United reviews its customer complaint procedures. Southwest institutes undercover passenger programs similar to Amara's. The industry that once turned a blind eye to discrimination suddenly can't move fast enough to address it. Marcus's daughter, Keisha, becomes an unexpected spokesperson for the next generation. Her graduation speech, which goes viral in its own right, addresses her father's experience directly. He taught me that excellence isn't just about achieving despite obstacles. It's about dismantling those obstacles for others. Today, I graduate with honors. Tomorrow, I start the work of ensuring no one else's parent faces humiliation for daring to celebrate their child's success. The standing ovation lasts 5 minutes. In the audience, Amara Johnson wipes away tears, seeing in Keisha the future her actions are helping to create. A year later, the long-term impacts become clear. Airline reports record customer satisfaction scores, particularly among minority travelers who finally feel seen and valued. The company's stock, which initially plummeted, reaches all-time highs as investors recognize that justice and profit can coexist. The diversity initiatives attract top talent from around the world, strengthening the company's competitive position. Sarah Miller and David Chen become cautionary tales, studied in business schools and corporate training programs. Unable to find work in aviation, they face ongoing legal battles and financial ruin. Their names appear in textbooks as examples of how personal bias can destroy careers and damage companies. Some express sympathy for their fate, but most recognize it as the natural consequence of choices freely made. The Thompson Fellowship, established by Amara and funded by Airline, supports 20 students annually in pursuing aviation careers. Its first recipient is Marcus's daughter, Keisha, but it quickly expands to include students from underserved communities across the country. Each recipient commits to mentoring others, creating a multiplying effect of opportunity. The cultural shift within Airline is profound. Employees who once stayed silent about discrimination find their voices. Reports of bias are taken seriously, investigated thoroughly, and addressed swiftly. The company that once embodied systemic racism becomes a model for corporate accountability. The Passenger Advocacy Board, with Marcus as a founding member, reviews hundreds of cases in its first year. Patterns of discrimination are identified and addressed. Crew members who can't adapt to the new culture leave voluntarily or face termination. Those who embrace change find new opportunities for growth and advancement. The media attention eventually fades, but the changes endure. Flight AL 447 enters history as a turning point, the moment when corporate America could no longer ignore discrimination in its ranks. Business schools teach it as a case study in crisis management and ethical leadership. Law schools examine it as an example of civil rights enforcement in the modern era. Marcus returns to his work as a mechanic, but with a difference. He now serves on multiple corporate boards, advising companies on diversity and inclusion. His expertise in maintaining aircraft engines translates surprisingly well to fixing broken corporate cultures. His voice, once silenced by discrimination, now shapes policy at the highest levels. Every one of us holds power, the power to speak up, the power to choose, the power to change. Don't stay silent when you witness injustice. Don't assume someone's worth based on their appearance. Don't let discrimination hide behind policies and procedures. Remember, the person beside you might be a CEO, might be a mechanic, might be a student or a teacher or a parent working 3 jobs to make ends meet. But most importantly, they're human. They deserve dignity, respect, and equal treatment. In a world where you can be anything, choose to be fair, choose to be just, choose to see people for who they truly are, not who you assume them to be. Because change doesn't come from the top down, it comes from each of us, making different choices, demanding better, refusing to accept discrimination as the price of progress. The next time you fly, remember Flight AL 447. Remember that justice has wings,